Hey guys, welcome to Outscale's Introduction to C++ program. Here we'll be talking predominantly and giving you a big introduction about how to start programming in C++. If this is perfect for people who are starting to do programming now, and this is probably their first programming language. If you already have some other programming language experience, then also this is a good program for you to learn C++ itself. So first thing we'll introduce about is why do we even want to learn C++? We want to understand that C++ today, there are even other more powerful languages. So you might have seen Python or Java or C Sharp, Go and JavaScript and so on and so forth. But today, even if you talk about companies that are building really high performance systems, they still need to build things in C++. So a lot of the core components of the Facebook infrastructure is also built in C++. A lot of financial institutions that are doing trading through algorithms are building core components in C++ because C++ is a very powerful language that lets you build systems that are highly performance oriented. So anytime you care about performance, even at the microsecond level, then you'll probably be working in C++. So as a result, it might seem that C++ is an outdated language, but actually when you look at the industry, there are a lot of high demand job opportunities that are available for C++ developers as well. So it builds a right platform for you to start learning C++ before you dive into any other languages. Also, since it's a slightly harder language to learn the very first time, once you get a hang of C++ and all the core concepts, right, it's easy for you to transition into something else, such as JavaScript, Java, C Sharp, or other high-level programming languages as well. Okay, cool. So what exactly we'll be learning here? So because this is an introductory program, this will get you started from a very basic understanding of what C++ is, how we code in, and introduce you to the very core fundamentals such as data structures and data types and writing a simple program as well. Cool. So let's dive in. So here you can see that I have a website called repel.it, repl.it. And this is an online coding platform where you can code your applications and software so that you don't have to worry about installing things when you're just getting started. And these websites are very helpful for you to get started without having to worry about setting up the softwares so that you can run things easily, etc. as well. So let's dive in. So you can go ahead and create your account, and I would highly encourage you to go ahead because during the entire program, we will be using Repel heavily. Instead, for now, what you can do is you can just simply click on this new Repel button. Okay, select the C++ programming language and hit create Repel. This will give you a new page where you can actually just start coding in, and it will also give you what we'll see in a minute. It will give you a simple program that's already created that you can run. Okay, so here is your actual code that you have written in C++ programming language. Okay, we haven't written it, the website has given this to us. We will understand line by line what exactly each of these lines mean, but understand that this is your text editor where you can go in and start making changes as well. Okay, so I can go in and modify something here and add few extra exclamation marks, and now I have made some changes to my program. Okay, so this way it gives you a very easy interface to start learning a language without having to worry about the complexities of it. Okay, so as you can see, there is a run button here. So let's see what happens when you click this run button. Okay, and we see this output show up saying hello world, which seems like something relevant to the string that we have written here, right? Like this message that we have written here. So we'll understand what these mean. Okay, so first things first, you'll see that there is something known as main.cpp, right? So main is the name of the file, .cpp is the extension, cpp stands for C++, right? So every time you want to create a C++ file where we'll be writing C++ code, we'll have to name it with a .cpp extension. I can create new files and call them xyz.cpp, test.cpp, it doesn't matter, right? But by default, anytime you start writing, you will see a single line, a single file by default getting created for you called main.cpp. It's just a standard convention. You can create new files, and you will create new files going down the road as well. Okay, but for now, this is all we need, and we'll just get started. All right, so let me zoom in a little bit here. All right, so here, essentially, for now, let's just ignore what this line means, and let's look at these 3 lines here, where actually our core code is. Okay, so every C++ program starts with something called as a main. Okay, so this tells your system that main is the starting point of your application or your code. Okay, so when the computer starts to understand this code, right, it will first look for where this main is, and it will start to read code from there. Okay, so if you had some code up here, right, the computer will just ignore all of this code, whatever you had written there. It will ignore this altogether, and it will directly start reading from here. Okay, so that's why we're going to just ignore whatever is on top. We'll come back to it, and let's start looking into what is exactly inside this main. So essentially what main is, it's a function. Okay, I'm going to just give you a lot of these terms because this is our first introduction to C++, but don't worry, this is just to make you comfortable and familiarize you with all these terms. All these terms we'll be diving deeper into our future classes. Okay, so if you don't understand any of these terms, don't worry, just go with the flow, and start to understand, start to make yourself familiar with these terms for now, right? Cool. So main is essentially what we call as a function. Okay, so a name followed by these opening and closing brackets, right, like these 2 brackets, denote a function. Okay, and what a function is basically a block of code. Okay, so anytime you see these curly braces and curly braces opening and closing, that block of code, if you put a name and then a name and then some curve brackets around it, that makes this entire thing a function. Okay, so typically that's how you'll create a function. You can create something like, if I just want to redo the same thing, I just want to say new function, right? I create a new function with the name new function, and then I just put in some curly braces next to it, opening and closing in the same order, and now my function is done. Okay, so this is how I've created a new function, very similar to a main function. Main function is something that is always needed, right? But these functions can be created by yourself. We'll come back to the topic of functions in a future class. Okay, so now to understand what exactly is happening inside a function. Okay, so here we have written some complex looking thing, and then we have it followed by a string. And when we run this program, right, we'll see that whatever we have written here, right, we actually get to see it in the output, right? So when we are running this program, right, when you're telling the computer to run this program, we're seeing it on the output. So let's try to break this statement, this line number 4, down into what is actually happening. So whatever we have put in this double quotes, right, this message, right, this message is called as a string. Okay, so we are just putting this as a string here, and all we want the computer to know is that we want to do something with this string. Okay, so now what do we want to do is that here we have written something as std, which stands for standard. Okay, it's a short for standard, and cout means we want to output this. Okay, we want to output this. For now, just understand it as the console. Okay, so console just means the output window wherever you're running this program. So for now, let's assume that this stands for outputting something onto the console. Okay, and what we're trying to do is we're saying, hey computer, take this string, and because if you notice that this arrows, these are nothing but the arrow pointers, right? Like they're kind of like an arrow. So we are telling the computer that take this string and output it onto, or rather write it onto this. Okay, the direction is this way. It's going from the string, right, to this. Okay, so we're saying take this output, or rather take this string and put it onto cout. Whatever you put onto cout will be displayed outside, or rather will be displayed on the console. All right. So this way, we have the capability of getting anything printed onto the screen. Okay. So what we have done here is we have created a function. We have written one statement, and through this we have been able to tell the computer that whenever we run this program, we want the computer to display hello world with 4 exclamation marks onto the output screen. Okay, hopefully that's clear so far. So we can do the same thing over and over again. So I can say hello world, how are you today, question mark. Okay, if I do this and if I run, I'll see both hello world with the exclamation marks, and then immediately following how are you today, question mark. So by copy pasting or by duplicating this starting part of the statement, right, and then changing the message on the other side, we are able to print the other message as well. But as you can see, these are two separate statements, right? And somehow when we output it to the screen, right, these are coming together, right? So I just want to make it look slightly better on the output. So let's see, what we can do is we can enter \n inside our string anywhere. So what this will do is it will tell the computer to give another line break. So anytime you see /n, it's essentially representing or telling the computer to break the line and put any further output that you want to put will come on the next line. Okay, so if I run this program again now, so you'll see on one line we have hello world, right? And then it encounters a /n. Okay, so this is a special character. It's a special keyword, right? So wherever I put this /n, the computer will start writing the output that is after it onto the next line. And then the next time it tries to write some output, it is trying to write how are you today, and how are you today comes on the next line. Okay, just to make sure that this concept is clear, I can put /n in between the word hello and world as well. Now both of these will also come on separate lines. So if we run this again, you can see hello is in one line, world is in the next line, and then how are you is again in the next line. Okay, so this way we are able to give basic instructions to the computer, and through that we are able to output some message onto the screen. Okay, so now imagine that we want to do the same thing, but hope you are doing fine. And so this is a basic, say, kind of a conversation that we're trying to build. Okay, so imagine that we're trying to build a chatbot or something, and there is a person that we are interacting with. So imagine the name of the person is Karan. Okay, so hello world, and then after that we want to say how are you today, Karan, right? So we are asking Karan a question, right? And then let's modify this a little bit. I hope you're doing fine, Karan, an exclamation mark. Okay, so now we are kind of having a conversation with Karan. Okay, so sorry, let's remove this so that it comes in a single line. And hello world, how are you today, Karan? And I hope you're doing fine. Okay, now imagine that this is kind of a conversation that you're trying to build. Today we have only 3 messages here, but if you turn this into a full conversation, right, like a chatbot or something complex, right, you can imagine that there will be a lot of questions, a lot of answers, and you will be writing a lot of these things, right? How are you today? Hope you're doing fine. Too bad to hear that. I hope things will get better soon. So you can imagine any kind of a conversation, right? And you'll have to enter these messages and strings, right? But the problem here is that you can be having this conversation, say with Karan, but obviously you don't know who the user of your program might be, right? Like the program gets used by another person called Vijay or another person called Rahul. So it's impossible for you to, if you want to build this program for 1,000 people, 10,000 people, right? You cannot create duplicate copies of the same pieces of code over and over again for every user. Okay, so we want to somehow turn this so that it becomes more sort of standardized. Okay, and this is where the concept of variables comes in. Okay, so what we will do is we'll first create a simple variable and call it current. Okay, so ignore the hash include statement. We'll talk about it in a future class for now. But all we are trying to do is we are saying that instead of instead of actually importing, or sorry, instead of actually typing every time for a new user, we're going to create something called as a variable. Okay, and in for that variable will be basically giving us information about the name of this particular user. Okay, and when we're doing this particular concept, so we've kind of separated our entire program into two pieces, right? So we have separately a name, and then we have the rest of the messages. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll break the message. I'll just quickly write a small piece of code, and then I'll come back to explaining what exactly we're trying to do. Okay, so here, and I'm gonna remove current here as well. um, and let's say name, and then again. All right, so what we have done is that we have removed current from that string, and now instead of that string we have added something called as a variable that we are calling as name. Okay, I'll just explain what this variable means, but for now let's understand what's the purpose of this. So the idea is that, like I was explaining, right, like tomorrow you don't know who the user of your program is and what their name is. Of course you don't want to be greeting Puneet by the name Karan, right? Because then the user will get confused. So what we have done is that we have kept the name of the that particular user in a separate thing called as a variable. And then what we are trying to do here is that instead of putting the name Karan inside our strings, we have actually put in the variable instead. Okay, so now you could see that earlier we were using Karan in both the statements, and what we have done here is that we have changed Karan with the variable called name, and then we have also broken the entire thing down so into multiple strings. So as this was one string and it was all put together, but I can repeat this particular piece, right? So I can have these two arrows with a string, and then another two arrows with a string, another two arrows with a string, and the computer will join all of them together. Okay, so this is same as writing multiple cout. We call the cout multiple cout statements, right? So instead I've written them all in one line, and that way all of them look joined together. So this will read, when the computer tries to read it will try to write on the screen, how are you today, right? And then add whatever is inside the name variable. Okay, in this case the variable is saying that it's the value of the variable is current. Okay, and then attach a question mark to it as well. So we're doing exactly the same thing, just that we have broken it down into smaller components. Okay, so coming back to the topic of variables, so what we have done here is that we have actually created a variable called name. And what variables are basically containers of data. Okay, so what I mean by that is that a variable would be holding some data. Okay, and then this data has a type which defines what type of data it is. Okay, so typically you'll give the variable some kind of a name to identify what is that variable. So here we've called the name of the variable itself is name, but imagine you can call it username, right? Instead of name, let's just call it username to avoid any confusion, and we'll just replace this with username. Okay, so here the name of our variable is called username. Okay, and its value is a string current. All right, And then we have used this username variable in other places. So this variable is actually holding a value or data of the type string, okay? And the value of that string is, in this case, current. Okay, so hopefully this makes it clear what exactly is a variable. You can have variables of other types as well, and we'll just quickly look at that. Okay, so it seems like there's std. Okay, so let's just do std string, and yeah, so let's run. And here you'll see we're getting exactly the same output that we were getting before, right? But now the benefit is, then you'll be asking, like, why are we even doing this if the output is exactly the same, right? But now the benefit is that I can run this program with a different username, okay? And I just need to change it in one location, right? And now all my messages are addressing Mayank, okay, instead of Karan. I didn't need to have to duplicate my entire code or have to go in and change, make all the changes, etc. I just need to make this. And if there were like 500 messages in your chatbot or something, right? Now you don't need to go in and change in all those 500 places. Okay, so this gives you that flexibility and power to change anything. Okay, so instead, let's imagine I call this Puneet Sharma, right? Like instead of just the first name, I want to tomorrow start showing full name. So now I just need to make this change inside the username variable, and wherever this variable is getting used, when I run the program, the same value will get applied everywhere. So if you run this again, so with one line of change, I'm able to now uh, address all my messages to a user named Puneet Sharma, right? So this is the power of using variables. So here in this case, because we were storing a name, we needed a type string. But imagine if we had another message, something like see out, how, at, you know, let's imagine something like, is your age, some number, okay, age correct, right? Like we are asking the question, is this your correct age? Something like that, right? Now age will not be a string, okay, because age is a number, right? And in C++, we typically denote numbers with integers, okay, and integers are whole numbers, okay, so they'll never be something like 1.5, right? There'll always be 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth, okay, or even minus values as well, okay. So, and they're typically written as int. All right, so we'll say int age and say 60. Okay, so here we have done is we have created another variable. The name of the variable is age, the type of the variable is int, which means it will store an integer value, okay, and the value in this case is 60. Okay, so if I run this program again, now here you'll see that we are asking user a question, that is your age 60 correct? Okay, so we are asking them a question. All right, so now this is how we have written a very simple C++ program that can display something onto the screen. All right, and it can use basic variables to actually collect or rather show the right kind of user information without causing a lot of duplication. Okay, now a good thing to understand here is that so far we have still hard coded these names inside the particular program. So tomorrow if I still want to change this Puneet Sharma to Karan, I still need to come and make changes into my code, right? Which is not very elegant if I'm making this program for thousands and thousands of people. So we want to look at as understand how to take in input from the user itself. Okay, so imagine that instead of just saying age is equal to 60 and asking that is your age correct, what we want to do is instead we want to ask the user that can you give me your age, what exactly is your age? Okay, so what we will do is that here we were so far using C out, which means outputting something or printing it out. Okay, so we're taking a string on the right and putting it onto the cout variable, right? and that cout variable is actually putting it onto the screen, right? And that is what we see here. But now we want to reverse this, okay? So instead, we want to ask user a question that, can you enter your age? Something like that, okay? And then we want to get the user's information from the user itself, all right? So the way we'll do is we'll use another, object for it. This is called cin. So here we are saying, take the input. Cout means use, like, print it out, and cin means take an input from the user, okay? And here you'll see the direction of the arrow gets reversed, okay? So we are going from cin to whatever we specify on the right hand side, okay? So we are taking the input from cin and putting it onto the right. Here we were taking this string and putting it outside, okay, onto the screen, right? So here we are saying this. So what we'll do is we'll add a proper message here saying cout. So let's say username. Can you enter your age? Okay. So here we are saying username, can you enter your age? Because we have this previous message, what we will do is we don't want this message for now, right? Like, this is part of our older code, but now we are taking the age from the user. So what we will do is that we will just put a double slash next to it, and this basically, as you can see, that now this code is grayed out, right? It's not highlighted like the other pieces of code. So what this is that you put anything inside, after a double slash, that becomes a comment, okay? And typically a computer will ignore anything that you write as a comment. It's only for humans to read, okay? It's like information that is available but for other human beings. So if I'm reading your piece of code and you have some complex piece of code, you can write a comment around it and explain what exactly this code is doing, okay? So comments are useful for leaving comments, messages, explanations as to what this code is specifically doing, okay? All right, so what we want to do is that we don't want to have this 60 number here. I just want to say that I want to keep the age inside an integer variable. Then I'm going to ask the user to enter their age, okay? And I'm going to read that number into cin, okay? Sorry, into age. And after that, I'm just going to get them a confirmation that, thank you, thank you for letting us know your age is, and then whatever that age they have entered, okay? And then I'll say /n. So what I want is, first I'll read the age, or rather I'll ask the user to enter their age, right? And then from there, I'll read it, whatever they enter on the console, I'll read it in and put it into this variable called age, which is of the type int, okay? And then it will, I'll show a confirmation message to the user saying, okay, I understood what your age is. Thank you for letting me know, all right? So now let's run this program and see what happens. So here it's saying, hello world, I hope you're doing today. I hope you are, how are you today? I hope you're doing fine. Karan, can you enter your age? So now let's imagine I enter 63, right? And I hit enter, right? So now it tells me that thank you for letting us know that your age is 63. So as you can see in this, when I was coding my program, I had no idea what the user is going to enter, right? So I'm reading that number and then I'm storing it internally in my program, right? So this age is stored internally in my program, and now I can actually output it onto the screen as well. Okay, cool. So now a fun assignment for you guys is to actually add on top of this program, right? To take the name from the user as well. Okay, so far we have taken, we have had, we have put the name directly here, Okay, so what I want you guys to try out is that take the input. Okay, and this might need a little bit of you might have to do a little bit of Google around it. But what I want you to try and figure out is how can we take the name also as an input, along with, say, a new thing such as like a phone number. Okay, so this would be a 10-digit mobile number. All right, so I want you guys to take a 10-digit mobile number as input, and also a phone number, and then every time the user enters that information, show them a confirmation message, something like this, saying thank you for letting us know that your name is this. Thank you for letting us know that your phone number is this. Okay, cool. So hope you guys are having fun, and you'll enjoy doing your first assignment, and I'll see you soon.
We are also building a dedicated community of passionate game developers, web developers on Discord. During this course, if you face any issues while building your projects, please feel free to ask relevant questions on our Discord community, and other students who have already done this course will be there to help you out. The link to join our Discord community will be in the description below. We usually publish a lot of information such as interview questions, hiring patterns, what's the latest and the greatest happening in tech industry, both in gaming and web technologies. In order to stay up to date on relevant information, please follow us on our social media channels, linked below.